to Daphne and Apollo. We will look today at 497 to 503. And so here we are looking at spectat in ornatos kolo pendrakapolos. And what we have in this section here is that Apollo spectat, right? So Apollo looks at, maybe watches here, but I think looks at probably works better with the indirect statement here. So he looks at or he sees, and in ornatos kapolos here is the indirect statement, the subject of our pendeira there. So he looks at her hair, unadorned. So in other words, it's not arranged, it's not combed, it's wild and unkempt, unarranged. And he looks at it hanging off of her neck or from her neck, on her neck maybe. And he says, what if they, now we're talking about her hair, and of course in English, hair is a kind of a collective noun, right? So even though this is plural, I'm going to say, what if the hair is arranged? What if it were arranged there? And he sees, now we have igne in the ablative, we have mekantes. Now igne means fire, with fire, by fire, in the ablative case there. Mekantes is flashing, it's the present active participle. That es tells us that it is nominative or accusative. Now look, we already know that the subject is singular, so this mekantes must be the direct object here, or describing the direct object, so flashing with fire. And he sees some things flashing with fire. We get sideribus. Now sideribus is itself a dative or ablative plural, so we still don't know what stars Cetus, Ceteris is doing there, but we do see similes, so similar to stars. And finally, we get the crucial word here. So he sees her eyes flashing with fire. And then we have a really short simile here. Just like or similar to stars. So what if he looks at her hair, it's hanging off of her neck, it's unadorned and hanging on her neck, and he says, gosh, what if that hair were arranged? And he sees her eyes flashing with fire, just like stars, similar to stars. And then we get the nice repetition here of widet, right? The anaphora of widet, and then of course it's extended with we to say, he sees her oscula. Now this literally is kisses, but I think what we mean here is her mouth. And that anticipates the next comment here. Her oscula, which, so her mouth, even though this, again, literally means kisses, but her mouth, which non est vides satis. Now, satis est here is the subject, which it is not enough to have seen. So technically, this neuter plural relative pronoun quae is also accusative because it is the direct object of vides. So he sees her mouth, which is not enough to have seen. So he sees her mouth and he thinks, okay, I can't just look at this. Now the implication, of course, is that he wants to kiss her mouth too. So he praises, laudat here, he praises, and we've got que. So while we had a bit of anaphora up here, we have polysyndon here with the que also in line 501. He praises both her fingers and her hands and her brachia. Now, her brachia is kind of like her lower arm, like her forearms. And then I say this because we also have lacertos here, which are like her upper arms. And he praises, so he praises both her fingers and her hands and her forearms, and at her lacertos, her upper arms. And we see nudos is describing them, so they are bare, naked. And then media plus parte here, so more plus than, so an ablative of comparison perhaps, more than the middle part. So what we mean is like mostly bare. So bare more than the middle part. So, almost up to the shoulder there. Si qua latent. So notice that we're following his vision from her fingers to her hands to her forearms to her arms. So kind of moving up there visually. And then he says, boy, if qua, now after si, nisi, num, and ne, ali takes a holiday is what I teach my students. So after si, nisi, num, and ne, this is really ali qua. And if anything, latent. If anything, or really it's neuter plural here, so if any things, but if anything lies hidden, he thinks all the better. He thinks they're better. And I will say that we're used to, when this is the relative pronoun, it's quae. The neuter, plural, nominative, and accusative is quae here. When we have the indefinite, aliqua, that's that neuter plural that E drops off there. So if any things lies hidden, if anything lies hidden, he thinks that those things, melior, are better.